Hello, hello.
Good evening. Welcome to Sunday Night Satsang with myself, John Homewood, and
Michelle McLuhan. Hi, everyone.
Michelle McLuhan. Welcome back if you've been here before, and welcome brand new if you haven't. We host these on most Sundays, not every Sunday, but most Sunday, a satsang. And what does a satsang mean? Satsang is
A lot of people ask that.
Yeah, what is a satsang? It's not we don't follow any sort of religious ideology in any way at all. But satsang is a good word for, it's really a gathering of wisdom, of sharing wisdom, a gathering of people on a path towards awakening. So satsang is a good name for it. And what are we talking about tonight?
The words, the stories we tell.
The stories we tell.
Mm-hmm.
The stories we tell. Do you tell yourself stories? Well, tonight we're also celebrating the full moon. And the full moon is a time of illumination, and it can be illuminating the stuff we've hidden away in the basement as well as the good stuff. Am I right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm a good astrologer.
You are.
And so Michelle will give us some insights, although she has released her video on the full moon, but she'll also be sharing some insights on this particular energy that we're going through at the moment with this full moon. A good opportunity to awaken, to drop all that no longer serves us. So that's what we were looking at tonight. Your stories, or our stories. Am I right?
Stories we tell ourselves.
Yeah, what are the stories we tell ourselves?
The words we speak.
Yeah, that's right. And why do we tell ourselves these stories?
And do we know that we're telling ourselves stories?
Are we even aware of them?
More importantly.
Are we even aware of these stories that we tell ourselves? So please, thank you. Hello, Janet. And who was that above that?
Paula.
Hello, Paula.
Tell us where you're from, and please just tell us who's joining us, because we can't make out exactly who's on the call.
Yeah, we see
It's
a
nice
few
to
small photographs.
see you live. I know some people watch it the day after, but it's nice to see some people live.
Yeah, it's always good to know that we're talking to
people.
real human beings,
Yeah.
real life human beings. So, hello, and yeah, thank you for the hearts. That's what we love getting. We love getting the hearts. So, yeah, if you feel what we have to share relates to anything or triggers your heart or opens your heart in any way at all, then please send us a few hearts. We like getting those as well. Yeah. And if you have any questions or comments as we're speaking, please type them up. We don't always get to them while we're speaking. We sometimes do, but we don't always. But we definitely do get to you after. So hello Dennis, hello from Howick.
And Sandra.
And Sandra from Cowie's Hill.
And Claire.
And Claire, yeah, thank you for the hearts and the thumbs up. Thank you very much for all of that.
Good. Hi, Kieran.
Hello, Kieran. Yeah.
Thanks.
So welcome to this time of the week. It's for some people, Sunday is the start of a week, but for most people we see it as it's sort of like the breathing space before the new week starts. And it's very good at this time to set a tone, a frequency, an intention for the new week that's going to unfold ahead. Hello, Sher. Who else was that? Alex. Hello,
Dennis.
Alex. Yeah. And so these satsangs are very much about setting a higher frequency for the week ahead. And gradually, slowly, you start to find your life, instead of being one damn thing after another, it starts to flow. It starts to become synchronistic in nature. Synchrodestiny starts to play a role in our lives as we start to set these intentions for higher guidance, for higher consciousness to come through us, to channel through us. And the Sunday night satsangs, I think, are a very important time for us to do that, for us to center ourselves in presence and become open and free of the mind stories, so that we can be open channels for the creativity and the abundance of life in its trueness and the joy of life. The joy of life, yeah. Hello, Sher. Yeah, those of you who've joined us a little bit late, we just have asked if you can just type up your name, tell us who you are. Hello, Viv, from Zimbabwe, if I remember correctly. Yes. And yeah, any comments, please let us have them as well. And if you find what we have to say in any way sort of beneficial, then please can you press the like and the share button as well. That also helps. So let's just start this evening by gently settling ourselves down into the physical body, and we start out with a short meditation. And you might like to close your eyes and just center yourselves inwardly. While the day might have been outwardly focused with friends and family, now we spend a little bit of time coming home, coming into the inner realm, the inner space within us. We might not be fully responsible for the world around us, but we're 100% responsible for the world within us, for what we feel in this moment. And so let's start out by just doing a few relaxing breaths, just to bring us fully into the present moment. So take a very deep breath in. And as you breathe out, just focus on surrendering, giving up, letting go, releasing all that no longer serves us in this moment. Take another very deep breath in, filling your whole body. And as you breathe in with gratitude for the abundance of air and breath that's given to us. And then as we breathe out, we surrender, not my will, but thy will be done. The will of life, the higher intelligence that guides us. We surrender into the arms of that. Take a third very deep breath in. This time you breathe right down to your toes. So you're really pulling the air in and down, up to the top of the head as well. And then just release, surrender, let go, and allow. And as we breathe out, it's a realization that we trust life to give us the next breath. But before the next breath comes in, there's always that slight pause. And we hand over the breath and the breathing now to this beautiful energy called life, trusting that life will breathe us even when we're not consciously in control of it. So we surrender the need to control the breath, and we allow. We allow and we accept the intelligence of life into our body, and allow life to breathe us simply, easily, in a flow, in a rhythmic flow of life. And as we breathe in and out, we relax and surrender to the present moment. The body is a powerful anchoring tool of presence. While the mind is constantly moving to times other than presence, it moves to past and future, many times a minute. The body, on the other hand, is always here. The body is always in the present moment. And so by bringing our awareness into the body, withdrawing our mind from all other times and all other places, we become more centered, more intelligent, more peaceful, more open to love and the joy of life. So let's just for a moment become aware of our feet, become aware of where they're resting right now. If they're resting on the floor, you might like to just connect with Mother Gaia beneath our feet and give thanks to her for all the abundance that she's given us today, for all the food that we've eaten has come from Mother Gaia. All the air that we're breathing right now is from Mother Gaia, all the water, all from Mother Gaia. And so through our feet we connect with Mother Gaia and we say thank you. We express our gratitude for the abundance of life in this moment, for the fullness of life in this moment. And we connect also with the Father Sky above us. And tonight we have the fullness of the moon, the fullness of the reflected light of the sun. And we're a channel between Father Sky and Mother Earth, a sacred channel. And the more open and the more empty we become, the more life is able to dance through us in the abundance of her creativity. And so in this moment we allow, we accept, and we empty ourselves of all thoughts, all attachments, all our resistance to life. We become open and empty. And in this openness and emptiness, there's no thingness, we find our true beingness, which is an isness of awareness. And this is sacred. This is the sacred essence of the divine, this being, this simple expression of presence is sacred, profound, and eternal. And that is the true I am, the true essence of who and what we are. We notice the mind with its continual stories, but in this moment we release all need to follow the mind with its stories. As we feel our feet on the floor, as we're aware of the flow of the in and the out breath, as we're aware of where our hands are touching and where our body is seated, that as we become aware of the temperature of the room on our cheeks, as we become aware of the pictures or colors behind our eyelids, and any sounds that the ears are perceiving in this moment, and we realize that we are the awareness that is aware of all of this in this unique, precious, sacred moment here and now. And as we empty ourselves, we connect with the fullness of life. And from our hearts we radiate this fullness into the greater field of consciousness which we know of as humankind. Not in any way needing to fix anything, but just like the sun, we shine. We shine our light into the world, and as we do that in a non-expectation way, as a way of just being in this moment. So this light that emanates through the opening of our heart is available to all those who wish to relieve themselves of the mind state of suffering and enter a place of inner stillness, inner peace, inner quietness. And so we take another very deep breath in and a quiet breath out. And keeping this openness, this stillness within us, we gently, softly open our eyes, becoming once more aware of the room that is around us. But we're aware of something more important than our situation or circumstances, and that is the sacred essence of presence that's here and now. Thank you. Thank you for being with us tonight. Thank you.
That was lovely.
How do you feel?
Peaceful. Peaceful.
Good. Didn't
Calms
nod
the
off.
mind. I didn't.
Didn't nod off.
No.
No, that would be a miracle with you.
I don't nod off easily.
Michelle doesn't nod off easily. No, I do. I can just close my eyes and I'm
gone.
gone.
In a second.
That's right.
While we're still talking.
Yeah, that's right. Not that Michelle's boring in any way, but I just have that ability just to close my eyes and off I go.
I'm still learning.
So what's happening in the sky?
So it's a full moon tomorrow morning. If you're in South Africa, it's about 11:15, I think. And the moon is in the sign of Gemini, which is an air sign, which is really the element of communication. It's the element that connects us. So without air, we wouldn't be talking on this platform, and we wouldn't be talking to each other because it conveys our words. So a full moon's always a time of culmination and ending of a cycle, and it can be a really beautiful release point for many of us of the cycle of the lunar cycle, which starts at the new moon. But it can also be a time when things come up into the light. So if you look at the moon is opposite the sun at full moon. So the sun is illuminating the moon. And what the moon represents in astrology is our emotions and our feelings, and what motivates us, what drives us emotionally. So when there's a full moon, there's often feelings are highlighted. That can happen. It doesn't always have to be bad. It can be really uplifting for some people. Some people really thrive at full moon. Other people find that their issues are kind of highlighted, and they feel a little bit less stable. So if you're going through some kind of instability, you might find that it becomes bigger at full moon. But it's also, at the same time as it becomes bigger, it's a chance to release. So it needs to come into your awareness so you can actually release it. So this full moon really shines a light on the way we communicate to others, and the way we communicate to ourselves. So that's why we called it the stories we tell. Because we tell stories all day long, and a lot of the time we're not used to it. We're not aware of it. We're not conscious of the stories that we tell ourselves. So we just thought we'd talk about that tonight. This particular full moon, though, is in a few alignments that are a little bit tricky, being that the sun is in a very close connection to the planet Mars, which is kind of a fiery planet, and it's very intense because it's right next to the full moon in Sagittarius. So that can bring anger to the surface, it can bring irritation to the surface. And then there's an alignment with Saturn, which can actually feel a little bit like a handbrake for some people. So I'm moving forward, but I feel like I have to move back. So I want to move forward, but there's something blocking me. And very often it's our thoughts that block us. So I think this is what's highlighting for us, that a lot of our blocks actually come from our own thoughts and our own thought patterns. So that's what we can talk about tonight.
Yeah, and looking at those blocks, I mean, the number one basket in which those blocks reside is the basket of fear. Mm. And just think in your life what you would do differently if you didn't carry fear. Mm. How differently would you live your life? What are the things that you would experience and express yourself through if you didn't carry fear in you? Mm.
And if we trusted that we are indeed on a process and things are actually working the way they need to be working, and we're here for a reason, then there's trust that comes in, and that actually starts to ease the fear. Yeah. There's trust. Yeah. But this time as well, our fears can be highlighted as well.
Yeah, with that moon. Mm. Yeah, it can be. And, a lot of people, and you can maybe write up in the comments box if this is correct, when I said, what would you do if you didn't carry fear, and maybe there was a lot of, forward momentum in that, an outward, I would do this in the outer world, and I would do that in the outer world, and yes, that you would find your outer doing would change quite radically if you didn't carry the blockages that fear contain. But at the same time, the real question is, what would happen inside you? What would happen in the real world of experience inside yourself if you didn't carry fear? You'd be able to experience possibly more joy in your life, more happiness in your life, a greater depth of meaning in relationships, in careers, for example. This all happens on the inside as we release fear. Fear is the acronym for false evidence appearing real. And as we drop that misperception, we start to, as you said earlier, we start to trust the flow of life. We start to trust in the greater intelligence of life. And as we do that, life becomes far less stressful, far more joyful. And we don't take the little ups and downs as seriously as we did when we lived in the perpetual state of fear and anxiety, that's for sure.
Yeah, because fear and anxiety shuts us down. So if you're sort of merrily going along your way and suddenly you have a reaction to something or something triggers you, if you're aware of your body and your energy, you can actually feel in that moment that you actually start to shut down. Your energy field starts to shut down, your body starts to shut down. And it's usually a thought, and it's associated with a fear that something isn't going to work, or that you're not going to be able to handle it, you're not going to be able to get through it. And it's quite subtle, and we don't recognize it at the time. So it'll very often come out as an angry word, or as a judgment, or just as a reaction to somebody, but we don't actually know why we're reacting. So I think this is a really good time, this month actually, the whole month, to really look at what those triggers are and what it's saying. You know, what is the story that I'm telling myself when I feel reactive, when I feel triggered? Because there's a story that goes with it. So if somebody does something or someone says something and you feel that reaction, that's the moment. And it's actually quite a useful technique to say, what is the story that I'm telling myself in this moment? And if you've got a close relationship with someone, you can even tell the person, you know, I had this thought that this story that I was telling myself when you said that was this. And you'll often be surprised because the person will say, really? That's the story you're telling yourself? That's very interesting, because that's not what was going on for me. But we assume, and we tell ourselves a story, and then we go into a trigger reaction.
Yeah, and if there isn't anyone to ask that, you know, or to explain your story, the one thing which Byron Katie teaches is that story true? How do you know that story is true? Is it really true?
And do you know for a fact that it's true?
Yeah, generally you don't know for a fact. It's just something that your mind has supposed is true in that moment, but it's not actually knowable that it's true in that moment. No. And it's true. So I said earlier that the greatest agent for change is awareness. And it's to be aware of the stories that we are telling ourselves continually as we move through the day. We think about 60,000 thoughts a day. And every one of those thoughts 95% of those thoughts is attached to a particular sense of identity. And it's a story that we're telling about ourselves and about the world around us. And generally, every story we tell is either diminishing us in that world or improving us in that world. In other words, the ego is either being made to feel better or less than in every story that we tell ourselves. And when you start to come into the ownership of the inner world, and you take full responsibility for this inner world, you stop telling yourself stories that either make yourself bigger or smaller, because in truth, the being that you are is all that is. And I know that might sound a bit what's the word I'm looking for? It might sound a bit mythical in the nature, but you are being. I mean, that's what you are. Right now, you are being. And as beingness, you can't be improved, nor can you be diminished. And as we start to know ourselves as awareness, as beingness, we don't have to tell these stories of protection anymore or of expansion anymore. We just accept each moment as it occurs and then let it go, let it go. If you need to strategize something or you really need to work something out with your mind, well, use your mind. But 95% of the time you don't need to use your mind. You can just be directly perceiving the wonderful, magnificent flow of life as it occurs in this moment. But the first stage is to become aware of these stories that we're telling ourselves and judging each moment and judging the world around us as wrong or right. Yeah. And in the state of beingness, there is no wrong or right. It's just an isness, just a total acceptance. So it's become aware of every time we criticize, every time we judge. Why are we doing that? Why in the moment do we need to create a story about that particular situation?
And you can catch yourself as you start to about to say something about somebody that you've noticed that doesn't fit with your vision of the world or whatever it is. Just to ask ourselves the question, do I need to actually say that? Do I need to actually link to that thought? Even though it's a thought, do I need to go down into that story and make a story about it? Or can I just see it and see that I've had a judgment and let it go? So that's the full moon, is seeing it, bringing it into the light and letting it go. So this person has just said something and I feel hurt by it. If you can actually remove yourself in that moment and actually ask yourself, breathe, bring yourself into presence and say, what is the story I'm telling myself about this person? And very often it'll go to some kind of fear-based thought, or some kind of, I'm not good enough, he or she doesn't think I'm good enough, he or she is dismissing me, he or she doesn't respect me, he or she shouldn't be doing that because it's wrong. It's just to see the story. Then at that point, as John said, you can say that, to use the Byron Katie method, which is the story I'm telling myself true? Does this person disrespect me? Do I have any evidence to prove that this person disrespects me?
Do I know that?
Always
Do I know
disrespects
that?
me. Do I know for sure that in this moment the person's intention is to disrespect me? And perhaps it might be, yes it is, but a lot of the time it's not that.
No.
A lot of the time it isn't that. And that's when you can actually start to see that it's a story. And that's where you can liberate yourself, because you know that it's not true. So therefore I'm not the story, and therefore this, I can just drop it. So it's very, very active right now, this energy. So it actually is giving us the opportunity to see those clearly. And with the Sun and Mars in Sagittarius, it's giving us a chance to see it from a higher perspective. So to get the distance, to stand and look at it from a little bit of a higher perspective and see it, not judge it. Because the judgment's going back into the story again. Then you're going into a judgment loop. Why am I judging? I shouldn't be judging. I shouldn't have judged. No, I judged. That's it. There's no story attached. Because usually it's I judged, and then there's a story. I shouldn't have judged. What's wrong with me? I'm mature enough not to judge. And then there's a whole loop. So it's just to say, in this moment I judged. Interesting. And let it go. So that's the process of forgiveness over and over again, isn't it?
Forgive each moment, and forgive just means
and
release.
yourself.
Just means release.
Yeah.
Let go. And then, so the first step is to recognize that we do tell ourselves stories. To recognize, I mean, you might say, well, I never tell stories. And yet there's a story going on in your mind right now
But
about you never telling yourself stories. So step number one is to recognize that there are stories being told by you continually as you move through your day. So that creates the awareness. So hang on, I'm the awareness witnessing a story, because beforehand you were the story. You were completely caught up in that drama, on that stage, in that particular act. And now suddenly, no, I'm now the witness of the mind creating the story. So number one is to become aware of the stories you're telling yourself. And then the second step is to say, is it necessary, is it entirely necessary in this moment for me to tell the story, either verbally out loud or just in my mind? Do I need to tell this person the story that I'm telling them? Is there any need for this in this moment? And where is that need arising from? Is it a need for egoic improvement? Is it a need for a repair mechanism for who I think I am? Am I trying to define myself by the story? What is the purpose in the story? If it's to convey information, well, it's fine. Tell the story if it's conveying information. But a lot of the time it's not about conveying factual information that's needed by the person who's on the other side of that listening, or yourself, or you telling yourself the story. It's actually a need for self-preservation. And the self that's being preserved is the egoic personality self. So that's the second step, is to become aware of what it is that is needing to be repaired within yourself, or defended or protected in that moment by telling yourself the story, or by telling someone else's particular story in that moment.
And I think a lot of the time we actually really like our stories. You know, this is my story, this is my story, this is what I do, and then we repeat it. And we repeat it, and we repeat it, and we repeat the same story. And a lot of the time we don't know that we're repeating the same story. And sometimes it takes somebody else to tell us that we're repeating the same story, because we're unconsciously repeating it. And I think at this point it's also really interesting to just know and to remember that whatever we say is an affirmation. We're bringing it into being. So every time we complain about something, every time we judge something, every time we state something, we are making an affirmation, and our words have power. So the more we can be aware of what we're saying, and just It happened to me today. I don't know what was going on, but something happened, and I was going to say something about it, and I just realized there's no point in saying this.
There's absolutely no reason.
It's a judgment, and it's irrelevant.
It's irrelevant,
and it's not going to make anything better, and it's not going to have any positive impact on me or the other person, because when we're in the story, we are in suffering. We are not bigger than. We're actually less than. We've entered a state of suffering because we're in a loop, and we're stuck. So it's really beautiful when you can actually just in that moment just decide to
create
just
no more
move
suffering
on and not create more suffering.
Yeah, that's the important
And it's a
part.
choice. It's actually a choice. It's in the moment though, because once you've gone into the story, that's when you're lost, because you've lost the consciousness, you've lost the awareness, and then you get fully involved in the story. In fact, you are the story. You've become the story.
You are the character in the story.
You become the character. Yeah. And this person next to you or in front of you or whatever has become the character as well. Even though they might not know anything about it, they're involved too.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So the process that we're involved with here is the process of awakening. And awakening it means really to become fully conscious and aware of what is happening in this moment. So we're fully conscious and aware of our thoughts and our feelings, and we become the conscious creator of those thoughts and our feelings. And as Michelle was saying, every thought we think, every word we say, every feeling we feel is an act of creation. And you've got to say, what am I doing? What am I creating through the expression of this energy, either through my words, through my thoughts, or through my feelings? Is it a creation of beauty, of joy, of connection, of love? Or is it a creation of defining my little self, protecting my little self? Is it a case of separation? In other words, there's me and there's the situation, and I'm better than the situation. So love is a sense of oneness in your awareness, a sense of embracing life. That is love. Where fear is always a sense of separation, of me and the other. And generally we try to make ourselves better than the other, whatever the other situation is. I mean, for example, I see on quite a few of the news threads, people are talking about, the war in the Middle East, or, whatever's happening in the Middle East at the moment. And, people are taking sides, and our side is better than your side, our side is more just than your side. Well, that's egoic one-upmanship. Again, it's ego getting involved and getting an identity from something that's happening thousands of kilometers away from you, but there's a sense of self invested in that contrast. Do we need to do that? Well, in this moment, no. Yeah, but if I don't do that, then bad is going to prosper. Really? No, I'm going to suggest that the more you come into your inner sense of peace and fulfillment and love and connection, so you become an instrument for that in the broader community around us. If there's some action you wish to take to alleviate pain and suffering in the world, we'll take that action. But most of the time we're just telling ourselves a story about that pain and that injustice in the world. We're not actually physically doing anything to improve the situation. And we think that by having these discussions and these justifications for our particular point of view, that we're actually helping the situation. We're not. We're just building an egoic identity for ourselves. So it's to become once more aware of these stories that we're telling ourselves, of the position that we're creating, the identity we're creating for ourselves in that particular story. We're creating an identity for ourselves. And that is a movement into unconsciousness. And this movement of awakening is a movement into a conscious awareness, into just a state of presence and being in this moment. And from that state of awareness and being, we become an instrument for positive transformation in the world, and we create no more suffering.
Because the thing is that when we're buying into the story and we're buying into the separation, let's just take a war, any war, and we've taken sides and we're buying in and we're listening and we're watching and we're commenting all the time, we're not only getting ego gratification because we think we're right, possibly, but we are feeding into the energy of pain and suffering and cruelty. So we're feeding into it. So we have to start to see ourselves, which is also part of the awakening process, as energetic. We are linked to everything. So, if I pull a little energetic string over here, it's felt throughout the universe. If I say a word here, it's felt throughout the universe. It ripples out into the universe. So what are we rippling out into the universe? What are the words we're saying? Are we getting caught up in all this crazy separation and division on our planet, because that's what's happening? Or are we choosing something else? Because every time we choose that separation, we're feeding it. And I think that's really important to know. We're feeding into, we're fanning the flames of something, and it comes from, we're feeding our own pain. Because if you're getting involved in that kind of thing, it's because there's pain inside us, and we're reacting off our own pain. But that's triggering it. So nobody can make us feel sad. We have sadness inside us, or we have anger inside us, or we have resentment inside us, or we have cruelty inside us. You have it inside you. And so it's triggered by somebody saying something to you, or some issue outside in the world. They're not making that happen. This thing hasn't made you sad. The sadness is there.
Or the anger
is there. The anger is already there. It's just triggered it. So it's all about self-awareness. And what John is saying there, it's an awakening process. It's an awakening process, which means that we're not expected to be enlightened. Welcome to the human race, We have got thoughts and we've got emotions. And so, but it's to delaminate our awareness from those thoughts and emotions, so that we don't believe that they are us. So I'm having this thought, which means that I am the thought. I'm having an angry thought, which means I am angry. No, you're just having an angry thought. You're having a sad thought. It's not you. It's not who you are. But when we go into the story, it becomes who we are. Yeah. I become the anger. I become the sadness. The more I tell the story over and over again.
So in the center we have the truth of who you really are, which is just, you can call it the I am if you want, I am. And that's a statement of fact, eternal fact, because you're always that. And it's also a recognition of love, because the I am that I am is the one I am that we all are. The moment we put a story next to the I am, for example, in my case, I could put the story of John. And John has a birth certificate, he has a whole story, and then he'll have a death certificate. And the moment I attach that to the I am, I lose my identity as truth, and I go into the fiction of the story. I become fictionalized in a story. So the I am is linked to John. Or we could have it, for example, I am a successful person, or I am a failure, or I am a particular religion. I am a Christian, for example, or I am a Buddhist. And then suddenly there's a story that we have now identified with. And we have the I am, the perfection of the I am. And now we have attached ourselves to an identity that is separate to the I am, to the isness. And the moment we do that, we create suffering. And it might seem absurd in that, but that is the root of all suffering, is a separation from the true isness of what we are, which is love, which is light, which is presence, which is being. And so the story may be a very good story. For example, Christian may be a very good identity. But the moment we do that, we go into a story and we become the story. And that story binds us. I mean, the word religion means to bind, or one of the meanings is to bind. We've now bound ourselves into a mind story. When in fact, the true essence of who we are is not a story. It's reality. It's this moment. It's to be perceived directly through our five senses. In this moment, that's who we are. We are this moment. This is what we are. So it's to be, the first step again is to realize that we're telling ourselves stories, and to see what those stories are, and then to notice, are these stories, why are we telling these stories? Are these stories necessary in this moment? Do we need to tell someone that I am for example, a rape survivor? is that a story that's pertinent to this particular moment? Does anyone need to know that in this moment? Why are we telling these stories? You know, stories about our ex this and our ex that. You know, why are we doing that? You know, what is the purpose in this moment to tell this story? And can we find ourselves aside from that story? Can we find the true essence of who we are without a story, without any story attached to it? And can we sit comfortably without a story? And the mind will find that quite freakish. It'll really not like that, because the mind is all about story. But you're not the mind, you have a mind. The same way that you have a body, the same way that you might have a car or a house. Those are things you have. And you have a mind, and you have a story, but it's not us. And the process of awakening is really a self-realization. It's to realize the self that's eternally present, that has no story, that has no past, that has no future, just an isness. The mind can remember the past. The mind can anticipate the future. And that's beautiful. That's the function of the mind. It's beautiful and wonderful. But we are the I am, the being.
And it's interesting what you said there, that the story gives you a sense of self. You know, it's a sense of self. It's not the self. The story doesn't give you yourself. It gives you a sense of who you think you might be. The story that I've got, you know, that life's so difficult, or this shouldn't have happened, and he shouldn't have done this, and that's the work, is to actually, in a situation where something happens and you're saying to yourself, why is this happening? It shouldn't be happening. Just stand back and ask yourself, do I know for a fact that it shouldn't be happening? Because on the level of soul, on the higher level of our higher selves, we have no idea whether it should be happening or not. And very often when you look back in your life and you see the worst possible things that happened to you, very often those are the things that led you to waking up, to aha moments, to meeting people. Those difficult things that we would have judged in the moment as something that shouldn't be happening actually landed up being the very thing that had to happen to shift you, or to move you to the next thing in your life, or to bring you home, or to whatever it had to be. So it's just to see it, to say, should this be happening? Well, I'm judging it. I'm saying it shouldn't be happening. It's happening. What about that? It's just happening. This is happening. There's no judgment. This is difficult. Somebody's sick. It is as it is. And I'm feeling this, I'm feeling these feelings. But not to judge it, whether it should be happening or not. Because then you've moved back into that story, into that suffering. Because you're resisting the thing that's happening. And then we tell that story over and over again. I have a problem. This is a real problem. And we continue to say it's a real problem. Maybe it's just also looking at our words, at the words we use. You know, instead of problem, you can use challenge. Challenge is more empowering. It's a bit of a challenge. But a challenge has got an energy to it. Whereas a problem is, it's a problem. What am I going to do? It's unsolvable. A challenge is, no, this is a challenge. It's challenging my the way that I deal with things.
And then
it's growing me. It's expanding me.
And then, do we even need to see it as a challenge or
maybe,
a problem?
Maybe not.
You know, if you drop the story,
even if you drop
the story. Well, there is no
is.
problem in this moment. There's no
is.
challenge in this moment. You know. So there's one thing I wanted you to expand on, because you were talking about it earlier. So we end off with a meditation. You're going to do a lovely full moon meditation for us, and that's really beautiful. And there was a comment or an article on one of the threads that we read earlier about just warning people not to participate in full moon rituals because they are, how do I say?
I didn't read the
They're
whole
dark.
article.
Okay, whatever. Okay, and as Michelle explained, the moon is the reflection of the sun, and it has a powerful energy on the earth. And I'd like you just to go into what that energy is and why.
Yeah.
I mean, we are subject to so many different energies from our solar system and on beyond. And and to judge something, you know, don't participate in the full moon. The full moon is a powerful time because it shines the light on our dark stuff, doesn't it?
Well, it's not only that. It's an integral part of our cycle. So it's an integral part of every single woman's cycle that's ever given birth to a child. So without that cycle, we probably wouldn't have anybody on the planet. That's number one. It's the feminine, the energy, and the sun is the masculine. So you need both. You plant on the new moon and you harvest on the full moon, and any gardener or farmer will tell you that. So it's cyclical. So we're not going to go into the article, but the article was kind of saying if you stay away from rituals because it's a portal or something. I'm not even going to go into that. But for me, it's about each of us having our own counsel and connecting with the moon and the sun. And if you're going to say that one thing's pulling you into the matrix, which is what this article was saying, then you must say it with all the planets. You must say it with everything, because everything's interconnected. And they're revolving. We're in a system, a solar system. So, yeah, so I don't think that's anything. If you've heard or read that article, I would, not take it too seriously. That's my opinion.
Yeah, and the full moon amplifies energies, and whatever you have an intention within you, I think it will be amplified at this
and
time.
And that's not bad. That's not a bad thing.
Well, if you're trying to do something like this black magic or something, and you amplify that, then maybe that's anti
that's not
love.
That's not what most people see.
Yeah, but if you are using it to amplify the good in humanity, then it's a powerful energy to do that, and it's beautiful, beautiful to participate in that amplification of the good in the world.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, you lead us out. You're going to take a card, an affirmation card for the week ahead.
Yes.
So we have some cards here, a whole lot of cards, and Michelle's going to choose an affirmation card for the week ahead. A blue. You chose a blue one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
That's pretty much how to dissolve the stories, isn't it?
Yeah.
So Michelle's going to give us an affirmation on how to dissolve your stories.
All right. Let's just settle in if you're not settled in already. And take a deep, beautiful belly breath in. So as you breathe in, allowing your belly to expand, and then bringing that breath all the way up into the top of your chest, holding for a second and then releasing the breath. Releasing, 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 releasing. And then a beautiful breath in again, expanding your belly, bringing the breath all the way in, this breath of life, and then releasing, releasing, releasing. Just allowing your shoulders to drop, allowing your jaw to soften, allowing your hands to soften wherever they may be placed. Allow your whole body to start to relax, even more than it was. As you allow your body to relax, just get a sense of any tightness or maybe pain or discomfort, and send your awareness, your focus into that area, and lovingly, gently, just breathe into that area and release. And just bring yourself into this precious present moment. And as you drop gently into this present moment, notice the sounds in the room around you. And then extend your hearing out to notice the sounds outside. And see if you can just notice the sounds without attaching to them. So without going into any story about any sounds you can hear. There's a sound I can hear. Just noticing. And then coming back to the breath. Allowing yourself to just be the neutral observer of the sounds that you can hear. No judgment, no trying to change it. Just acknowledging it, seeing it, accepting it. And then tuning back in to to maybe the sound of your own breath. And as you come back to your own breath and into this moment, you might notice that thoughts come and go. Possibly anxiety, or maybe a judgment, or maybe something that comes into your awareness. See if you can do the same thing as you did with the sounds. Just notice it. And breathe and bring yourself back into the moment. And you might notice a feeling coming up here and there. Again, just noticing whatever that feeling is. Easy, difficult, doesn't matter. No judgment. Just noticing it. And then bringing yourself back again. And just focusing on the here and now. And to help us to do this week and this full moon, our affirmation is, I choose to bring my attention, focus into the now. I choose to bring my attention or focus into the now. So whatever may come across your plate this week, the next few days, just practice this in your meditation, practice this in your quiet times, so that if anything happens in the exterior world that's possibly challenging, you already set the tone. So you've allowed yourself to bring yourself back. It's easier then to deal with the challenges. I choose to bring my attention, focus into the now. And as you just scan yourself, you connect with where you are at the moment in your life. Just connect to something that you would really like to release into the light of this full moon. So this could be a story that you tell yourself often. This could be a fear. This could be an anxiety. This could be a pain. What would you like to give up to this full moon? And you might want to imagine yourself standing in front of the moon and opening your arms wide and surrendering it into the light. Connecting with your breath, connecting with your body, feeling the energy in your body in this moment. Feel the sensation of your own heart beating. This is where life lives. Notice the breath as it comes in through the nose and out through the mouth or the nose. Just this breath. Just this moment. I choose to bring my attention into the now. This now is your point of power. in this space, the knowingness arises with no struggle. And start to bring your attention back to your breath. Take a deep breath in and out. And staying in this peaceful place, gently start to open your eyes when you're ready.
Thank you. It was beautiful. Wasn't that lovely? And amplified by the full moon as this energy of openness and connection and love. So over the next few days, very powerful time. Just be aware of every thought you think and every feeling you feel and every word you say. It's an act of creation. Let's collectively create a new earth based on love rather than based on fear, based on community and connection rather based on separation. Thank you for joining us tonight. Love you all, and I'll post a copy of this affirmation up on the Facebook page, and let that lead and guide you in the week ahead. Okay. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's a love.